Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reason and Theology. I hope everyone had a great weekend. So, we're going to need to talk about an Israeli airstrike that recently occurred in Lebanon, destroying a Catholic church along with 8 people who died from the blast. We're also going to talk about a situation with a Greek Orthodox priest who was recently injured in an airstrike in Lebanon. Then I want to shift gears and speak very briefly about the fire that has recently come on a Catholic church in Chile. So, one of the oldest Catholic churches in Chile is burning down. I also want to address the situation with Harris and some of her policies on transgender surgery. And then finally, going to touch on a follow up to the situation with Pastor Stephen Anderson, who was recently admitted to the psych ward involuntarily. So we'll have a follow up there. All right. Well, at first, I want to start with what is, the main theme or main title here of the video, and that is a Catholic church destroyed by an Israeli missile with 8 dead. It's really unfortunate news. I saw this over the weekend. It's just heartbreaking to see. This isn't the first Catholic church that has been destroyed by an Israeli airstrike. We've actually seen some instances of this taking place in Gaza. We also saw a Greek Orthodox church destroyed in Gaza, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So this is truly, truly unfortunate. I want to remind y'all, by the way, before we dive specifically into the topic at hand, please hit that subscribe button. Please help me reach more people with the content right here that you appreciate on this channel. If you think that it's beneficial and is helping you, please do your part by hitting the subscribe button and the like button. I would really appreciate that. All right, let me share my screen so we can go over the news report that touches on this. I kind of feel like this should be getting more news, and I'm just not seeing enough about it, unfortunately. I think this is something that we need to be aware of. This kind of stuff seems to continue to take place, and I believe we need answers for why this is happening. Of course, the IDF claims it's not intending to target civilians or Catholic churches and stuff like that, but we continue to see problems like this, and so an explanation needs to come. Israeli missile destroys Catholic church in Lebanon, at least 8 dead. This was posted just a couple days ago, October 11th. A church of the Melkite Greek Catholic Eparchy. So this is a Melkite Catholic church. If you're not familiar with what Melkites are, this is one of those Byzantine Catholic churches in communion with Rome. The Catholic Church is made up of 24 different churches. You're probably aware of the Latin Rite, which is the largest. But there are 23 other Eastern Catholic churches in communion with Rome, fully Catholic underneath the Pope. One of them is the Melkite Greek Catholic Church that is very prevalent in places like Lebanon and also Jerusalem. So this is an Eastern Catholic church that was destroyed. A church of the Melkite Greek Catholic Eparchy of Tyre in Lebanon was hit by a missile from Israeli airstrikes in the country's south October 9th, killing at least 8 people. So that's at least. In other words, there could be more here. The British branch of the Pontifical Foundation Aid to the Church in Need has reported this situation. Local sources told ACN that the church located in the town of, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, was sheltering people displaced by the conflict. So this is even worse, because not only is it a Catholic church and there's people in it, it was also there to shelter people from the conflict. It's not like this is a situation where terrorists are using a Catholic church or something. No, this is there to shelter people from the conflict. A priest's house and a 3-story building housing parish offices were also completely destroyed by another missile. Pope Francis called for peace in the Middle East on X, stating that all nations have the right to exist in peace and security. Their territories must not be attacked. Their sovereignty must be respected and guaranteed through dialogue and peace. In an additional post on October 11th, the Pope said, "I call for an immediate ceasefire on all fronts of the war in the Middle East, including Lebanon. Let us pray together for the Lebanese, especially for the inhabitants of the south, forced to leave their villages, so that they can return as soon as possible and live in peace." The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, this is Cardinal Pizzaballa, sent a letter to Pope Francis in which he conveyed the most sincere gratitude of Catholic leaders and all the faithful of the Holy Land for his closeness and compassion. In fact, Pope Francis often talks about how he has a daily phone call. So every single day at 6 p.m., he has a daily phone call with a priest of a parish in Gaza. And he gets updated information directly from that priest every single day at 6 p.m. So he tries to stay very well informed on what is going on there. Published in the October 11th edition of L'Observatore Romano, the patriarch also noted that the Holy Father has been the only world leader to recognize the human suffering of all in the region. Pizzaballa said the church is responding with weapons of love to the mistrust that seems to be spreading more and more among all those involved in the conflict. In this context of deep rooted hatred, there is a need for empathy, for gestures, and words of love that, even if they do not change the course of events, bring comfort and consolation, Patriarch Pizzaballa recently said. The Cardinal was also emphatic in stating that we must not give in to the logic of evil and hatred, which I suppose is very easy for a lot of people to do, especially if you have family over there. It becomes really personal at that point. But of course, a lot of us are just coming across all sorts of stuff on social media, and we're seeing um, really just horrible tragedy, and it's tempting to become hateful when you see some of that stuff. It really is. It's almost understandable. I'm not saying it's right, but it's understandable why some people are starting to turn that way. But the Cardinal was saying, hey, we got to avoid that. We can't go down the path of evil and hatred. We will not give in to the events that seem to drive us apart. Rather, we will always try to be builders thirsty for peace and justice, he stressed. That's important. Not just peace, but also justice. Because I think we can all agree, no matter what position you're coming from, there's a lot of injustice taking place right now in the Middle East with these situations. For the patriarch, the testimony of many men and women in the Holy Land who, despite being affected even on a pastoral level by violence, have had the courage to forgive is of great relevance. This small remnant, he continued, might be a starting point for rebuilding relationships and trust that have been broken. We can certainly hope so, because there's going to be a need for that, a lot of that in the future. I mean, where do we go from here? How is there ever going to really be peace after all of these situations? There's going to have to be a lot of forgiveness, a lot of dialogue. From this difficult moment, we must learn to make our relationships even stronger and more sincere in the future to build authentic and serious contexts of peace and respect. That's all I have on that particular situation because I haven't seen a whole lot of people talk about this. And I don't know why. I don't know why this isn't being given more attention in the media. You know, I think this is something that people need to be made aware of, and perhaps we can help inform other people about this situation. And of course, pray for peace and also for justice. Um, on a related note, I did come across this. This was about a week prior, on the second. So that airstrike of that church was on, I believe they said the ninth. So this was on the second. Greek Orthodox priest injured in Israeli airstrike. So there's a little bit of information that I was able to find out about this situation on the Greek Herald. I originally just came across it on Twitter. I mean, Twitter seems to be the place where you can find a lot of information these days. However, um, oftentimes the information is inaccurate. So you got to be really careful. You can find a lot of stuff and you can get it in real time on Twitter, but half the time it's inaccurate. So I had to look for some kind of external source to verify the story. And this is what I was able to find with the Greek Herald. A recent Israeli attack on Lebanon's south has resulted in a mass of Christian casualties, with some fatalities and many injured. Among the injured was Father Saloom, parish priest at St. George Orthodox Church, along with his family. His home, located in Al Sagi Hill, appears to have been hit by several Israeli airstrikes. Despite reports that Father has died, the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese and dependencies clarified this morning that he is in fact fine. In fact, I came across the stuff on Twitter saying that he was killed. So this is why we actually need to make sure that we're verifying information and just not taking it wholesale as we come across it. Because if I had just taken that report from Twitter, I would have that misinformation. So I went and looked for an external source that clarifies no, he's fine in the hospital though, with little detail regarding his condition or that of his family. Here's a picture of him. Seems like I've seen his face before, but I couldn't pin where I believe I've come across him before. Maybe if somebody's familiar with him, where else we may have seen him, let me know. Put it in the comment section. But he looks familiar. The Archdiocese confirms that Father Salom is fine and asks for the prayers of the faithful for his speedy recovery, the Facebook post read. The incident marks a string of fatal attacks on Lebanon, with Kafur, a Christian village near Nabatea, recently hit by Israeli fire, and the village of Ain el Delb near Sidon, hit by Israeli planes. That's all they have about it. And I see a comment here. I want to see what Lewis has to say. He always has great insight. Waiting for IDF to put out a statement saying Hamas had a tunnel underneath. Well, yeah, there's only so many times that one can be used, right? There was no sufficient explanation for the Catholic Church that was destroyed in Gaza previously. I mean, I did not see anything by the IDF where they came out and sufficiently answered the questions as to why that happened. I saw them say, well, they thought that this was a terrorist. No, these were women that they had sniped in a Catholic church, and there was nothing that indicated these were terrorists. So, you can't, there's only so many times that you can say, well, hey, there was a terrorist here. I imagine in some cases that might be true, but in a lot of cases it doesn't look like that's adding up. And in this particular case, what's going on here? Are we going to get any answers? I'm afraid that the answers will come way after the fact, after an investigation, way after the fact. And at that point, it's a day late, dollar short. It's like a moot point by then. If you do some kind of investigation after a war or something, it's too little, too late. This needs to take place now. Answers need to come now. So it's truly heartbreaking to see this. Now, on an unrelated note, is this situation with a fire in Chile. I just came across this right before the show. I started seeing some videos of this church burning down in Chile. This is evidently one of the oldest churches in Chile, and it's like this is yet another Catholic church that is burning down. What's going on? I mean, we've seen this so much in France. I believe Switzerland, we're seeing a lot of it there, if I'm not mistaken. It seems like we're constantly seeing more videos of Catholic churches burning down. And the question is, why? And in some of the reports that we're getting, we're hearing that it was just an accident or something. And you have to start wondering, is it really? Why are there so many accidents happening all at the same time? It doesn't add up. It does seem to be intentional. Um, But I suppose we have to take every situation on a case by case basis. You can't put them all together and just say that there's one explanation for them all. I understand that. But I suppose I do have to ask, why does this continue to happen? Why are there so many accidents continuing to happen? Is this normal? I mean, was this happening before? Maybe we're just now aware of it because we have Twitter or something. I mean, how many churches burned down in the past? Maybe we need some kind of statistics on this showing us, has there really been a significant increase? It feels like it, but maybe that's just due to our awareness. I don't know. But I wanted to bring this one to your attention. Let me see here. Let me go ahead and read this to you. This was posted by Vatican News. Fire destroys one of Chile's oldest churches, which is a 17th century landmark. It says a devastating fire has consumed the historic San Francisco Church in Chile, a 17th century landmark. So from the 1600s. Authorities are investigating the cause of the fire, which unfortunately I misread that, which fortunately resulted in no casualties. Well, that's good news. That is very good news to hear no casualties. I suppose my question is, why do we continue to see this? Um, okay, so total destruction, a catastrophe for the region. That's how witnesses are describing the fire 2 days ago on Friday, 11th October. It consumed the parish of St. Anthony of Padua and the Franciscan convent known as the Church of St. Francis in Chile. It was one of the oldest Catholic buildings in all of Chile, mostly made of wood and dating from the 16th century. The church was built at the time of the Spanish conquest and the arrival of the Franciscan order in the region, and had been recognized as a national monument since 1994. The flames had originated the previous day under the statue of a saint and were initially contained by the fire brigade. That's wild that it would originate there. That just kind of sounds deliberate, doesn't it? They then resumed 24 hours later for unknown reasons. We get this a lot. We hear this a lot from some of these reports. The firefighting units, 12 in total, were unable to prevent the fire from completely consuming the wooden building. In fact, I did see videos on Twitter of the entire thing collapsing. The authorities have opened an investigation, and a team of investigators is now working to find evidence of the initial cause of the fire, which fortunately caused no casualties. Well, I don't know if it started at a statue. That doesn't sound like some kind of electrical error, you know? So, I don't know. Maybe they have some lights that are lighting up the statue right nearby. And I don't know. It would be nice if we had some answers here. I don't know if we're going to get a whole lot of answers, however. But if we do, I will come up with a follow-up show and talk a little bit more about it whenever we find out more details. But I wanted to bring it to y'all's attention as yet another instance where we're seeing this happening. Now, I want to talk briefly here about the situation with Trump attacking Harris for her support of tax-funded transgender surgeries for prisoners. This is some wild stuff. So we're going to see what Harris's position is on this situation. Before we shift to that, though, let me remind those of y'all who are just now tuning into the show, thank you so much for visiting. Please hit that like button and the subscribe button. I would really appreciate your support. So if you so far are enjoying the content or have seen the show before and have been benefited from it, please go ahead and do your part. Hit that subscribe button for me. Let's talk about this situation with Harris and Trump. This came up from CNA. I saw this headline and found it fascinating. Trump attacks Harris on her support of tax-funded transgender surgeries for prisoners. Now, do you think that this is something that taxpayers should be paying for? Transgender surgeries for prisoners? It's going to be couched as some kind of medical necessity. Is that really medically necessary? And is that something you, perhaps as an American citizen, for those of y'all who are citizens of the United States who are watching, is that something that you want to support with your tax dollars? I mean, haven't they already abused this when it comes to tax dollars already? I mean, aren't they using tax dollars to fund abortions, murder of innocent infants? Now we have to pay for transgender surgeries for prisoners? Yeah, no. Yeah, no. I'm not in favor of that. I'm sorry. If somebody wants to do that to themselves, I don't recommend it, but I sure don't want to pay for it. So let's see what it says. With election day less than a month away, former President Donald Trump is running campaign advertisements in a swing state that criticize Vice President Kamala Harris over her support for taxpayer funded transgender surgeries for prisoners. Wow. It's hard to believe, but it's true, a narrator said in one advertisement, while showing Harris standing next to Sam Brinton, a former Department of Energy official who is male, but is wearing women's clothing. What does scripture say, by the way, about that? What does scripture say about men wearing women's clothing and women wearing men's clothing? Anybody know? Put your answer in the comment section. I'm looking at the comments while I'm doing all of this live, so I want to see if y'all catch it. Go ahead and put it there. The advertisement features Harris's response to a 2019 questionnaire sent out by the American Civil Liberties Union, in which she promises to use executive authority, to ensure that people in prisons, including immigrants charged with entering the country illegally, can obtain gender transition surgeries through government provided medical care. So, do you want to not only pay for somebody who is a prisoner to get a sex change surgery, but not only just a prisoner, but one who came here illegally? Do you want to pay for their sex change surgeries? Again, yeah, no. It's a yeah, no for me. I suspect most people watching this feel the same way. But if you don't, let me hear from you. Put your answer in the comment section and let me know why you disagree. And good question, Matthew. I see your question in the comment section. Why do they need sex changes? Well, it's going to be couched as medical necessity. You see this medical care. I love the way they use these euphemisms. I love the way they couch some of this stuff. Medical care. Medical care. They also speak of murdering innocent infants in the womb as medical care. They call that healthcare. Mhm. Murdering innocent people is healthcare. Jose asks how many prisoners even want a sex change. I don't know. I did not even know that was a thing, to be honest with you. I did not know, Jose. I did not know that anybody in prison was asking for a sex change, let alone illegals. You got me on that one. I support policies ensuring that federal prisoners and detainees are able to obtain medically necessary care for gender transition. So there's an answer to your question, Matthew. They're couching it as medical necessity. Medical necessity. I mean, so basically, these days you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want and just couch it as medical necessity. And we're good to go, right? Hey, you know what? You don't like your nose. You feel like you want a nose that looks like Peter Pan. Okay. Make that happen. Well, hold on, wait. I thought that this isn't going to be covered by the insurance. Well, you know what? We're going to make it medically necessary now. Just slap that label medically necessary on there. We're good to go. That's the way this comes across. Stuff that isn't medically necessary, you can get it paid for by just slapping the label medical necessity on it when it's very clear this is not medically necessary. How is it medically necessary to change how God made you? How's that medically necessary? Explain that to me. Well, it's not. I suspect the argument would be, well, it's psychologically necessary. Maybe this person is struggling with their gender identity and blah, blah, blah. Well, perhaps we need some mental health care, but not sex changing surgeries. And it includes surgical care while incarcerated or detained, Harris said. Again, y'all want to pay for that? Well, if she's elected, she's saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to make sure that this is paid for, and your tax dollars are going to be used for that." As California Attorney General, I pushed the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to provide gender transition surgery to state inmates, she added. The advertisements also include a brief clip from a 2019 interview with a National Center for Transgender Equality Fund, in which Harris doubles down on the position. A second Trump advertisement out this month touches on the same subject and details a case in which convicted murderer Shiloh Quine, who is a male, reached a legal settlement with then California Attorney General Harris to obtain government funded transgender surgery while in prison. He murdered a father of three, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change. Wait, what? Shouldn't he be paying back the American citizens after such a crime? How is it that American citizens are paying for that? Harris initially represented the Department of Corrections in court, which was refusing to pay for the transgender surgery. Well, yeah. However, she ultimately agreed to a settlement in 2015, which required the state to finance the operation. Wow, the great state of California. The settlement made California the first state to pay for a prisoner's transgender surgery, the Associated Press reported at the time. In 2019 news conference, Harris said she only defended the department's policy because she was obligated to do so as the attorney general. She said there were times when her clients took positions that were contrary to her beliefs, but that she worked behind the scenes to pressure the department to change its policies. In 2015, California Department of Corrections set new guidelines that guarantee government funded transgender surgeries for prisoners who seek those operations. This is just a clown show. This is just wild. It's hard to believe that this is actually happening in the United States. It really is. It's so hard to believe this. I don't understand what is happening to this nation. This is wild. It's like we sink into a new level of depravity every day, a deeper and deeper level. And when you think you finally reach the bottom, nope, nope, nope. They come out with something that you just would have never thought of, something even wilder than before. And yet, here is an example of that. Heartbreaking, but what can we do but pray? Rosalind says. Well, I think we can not only pray, but also vote and vote against this stuff, oppose this stuff, make your voice known. And not only just vote and pray, but also try to influence others to vote against this stuff. Influence others. Share your position on why you believe this is wrong. I mean, we can start out with the fact that this is contrary to God's will. God made us as we are. To go and get a sex change surgery is to say, God made a mistake in assigning my gender at conception. We're saying God made a mistake. I suppose this is the outflow of atheistic thinking that merely assumes that there isn't a God and perhaps there's just some mistake here at birth. This is certainly not something that is consistent with a theological paradigm. All right, well, I want to move over to a different topic here with the situation with Pastor Stephen Anderson. I think a lot of people have seen my video that I did just a few days ago on this. If you haven't, let me pull up the title just so you can be aware of the name of it, and I'll put a link to it in the show description. It's called Pastor Stephen Anderson involuntarily committed to psych ward, question mark. And I cover who Pastor Stephen Anderson is, a lot of the controversial aspects surrounding him, not only in the past, but also presently, and touched on the situation with him being involuntarily admitted to a psych ward. And we were kind of left on a cliffhanger with that show, wanting to see, okay, well, what does Anderson say about this situation? I mean, he seems to have admitted on Facebook in a post that he immediately took down But he admitted on there he was involuntarily committed to a psych ward, but did not indicate why, what happened. People were speculating, is this related to the situation with his children? 3 of his children have come out saying that he has been incredibly abusive to them and their mother for a very, very long time. They're all coming out with the same stories. So, there was some speculation, is this related to that? Well, he has now come out, preached a whole 2-hour sermon, kind of giving his side of the story. We're going to watch just a highlight clip of this. Perhaps I'll put a link to the full thing on Facebook if you want to see the whole thing. But I think you'll get the gist of his side of the story for what happened that I think you might find interesting. He's saying that there was a guy who basically set him up, who tried to do this anonymously to sabotage him. But now he knows who it was. He's getting the paperwork from the court, and he's saying what the guy did was illegal. So sounds like he might be, intending to pursue charges against him in the future, since he's getting all that information, he said, from the courthouse. So, okay, let's go ahead and watch maybe just a highlight clip of his sermon where he gives his side of the story and just kind of talks a little bit about what his time was like in the psych ward, which sounds like it was a wild experience. Let me also, again, make sure that you can hear the audio. Let me turn the audio on so that you can hear it. All right, let's go ahead and dive in.
Why are you trying to kill me?
I'm not.
Why do you? So who's trying to kill me?
I don't know.
Someone here wants to kill me. Who is it? Tell me who it is. But on Tuesday morning, I was just sitting in my room, minding my own business, reading Mark chapter 5 of all chapters in my Catalan New Testament, and the police came and took me to a mental institution against my will and checked me in there. The cops, when they picked me up at my house, they acted like I was just going to go see a doctor and then everything was going to be fine. But no, I get there and they check me into a mental institution for 72 hours. But I was told that I would see a doctor every 24 hours that could potentially discharge me. And I did end up getting out of there in a little less than 24 hours. The place was horrific. It was straight evil. But I will get to that later in the sermon. Why did this happen? Because that effeminate piece of crap, Lionel Caros, decided to fill out some document and lie and commit felony perjury. And he thought that he was going to be able to do it anonymously and we wouldn't know who it was. Well, guess what? We do know who it was. And we're getting those documents from the courthouse. And what he did is a felony. But I digress.
I don't know what's going on there. Why this guy did this. From what I've seen, I should rephrase that. I haven't really seen anything from him explaining why this happened. If y'all have more information on why he had him committed, let me know. We did look into the rules and it indicated that the guy would have to show justifiable reason. You can't just willy-nilly have somebody admitted. You have to show justifiable reason. So what were the grounds for this? Those are the questions that I want to know, because hey, there's always two sides to every story. You're hearing Anderson's side. Maybe this other guy has some very serious reasons for why he had him involuntarily committed.
Turn, if you would, to Mark chapter 3. Let me give you some people in the Bible who were accused of being insane. So it turns out I'm not alone as a Bible preacher being accused of being crazy or being accused of being insane. The reason that I didn't come back to church, the reason I didn't come to church on Wednesday night, even though I was released on Wednesday afternoon, is because I was just so mad. I was so angry. I was in no condition to preach. It would not have been the right kind of a sermon. And I think it was just God's will that Brother Segura preached anyway, because he preached such a phenomenal sermon. But I'll try my best.
That guy that he just mentioned is the one who was attacking Anderson's own son in that message. And Anderson praises the sermon attacking his own son. That's really weird.
This morning to describe it. Basically, it was a room that was approximately 50 feet by 60 feet. So it wasn't that big. And I counted 50 lunatics that I was in there with. So I was in one room with 50 crazy people and one normal guy, and 10 or maybe 8 or 10 staff members at any given time, all in one room, jammed into this room. The room's full of chairs, 50 crazy people, myself, one other normal dude, and about 8 staff members at any given time. I mean, there were some messed up gangbanger, drug addict types there that said, quote, I should have stayed in prison. This is the most effed up place I've ever been. It's like a concentration camp for crazies. Others compared it to a haunted house due to the fact that there was just continual hellish screams going on the whole time. Okay, so I got to just show you some of the things that I experienced while I was in there. Okay, so this guy, come on up here. This guy walks up to me, and first he just starts asking me normal questions, but he got about this far from my face. Okay, so I'm standing there. The guy walks up to me and basically says, like, "What's your name?" Just answer me like with your answers. Like, what's your name?
Corbin,
Where are you from?
Michigan.
What do you do?
Even for demonstration purposes, this is way too close.
Conditioning.
Why do you want to shoot me?
I-
Why are you trying to kill me?
I'm not.
Why do you? So who's trying to kill me?
I don't know.
Someone here wants to kill me. Who is it? Tell me who it is.
I have
What?
no idea.
All right, you can go ahead and say. I'm gonna need you again though. I hope you know what you're getting into. So have a seat because it's gonna get a lot weirder. But this
Oh.
woman would go from just cheerfully walking around, you know, doing all this stuff and whatever, and then she would just go into these rants that would just go on for hours, literally hours. And I mean, it doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m, 4 a.m, just any time of day. She just go into just these insane rants, and I can't really even impersonate it because like I can't even talk that fast because these crazy people, they talk just like a machine gun, just nonstop for hours and hours, and then they just like pass out. But then as soon as they pass,
That has to be something that would drive you crazy. I kind of feel like if you're admitted into these places and you're not crazy, you'll soon become crazy by being exposed to all that. So it's just like there's no way around it. You know, you're either crazy when you go in there or you're crazy while you're in there.
that's how like someone else takes a shift. So there's no rest day or night because as soon as one person conks out and she's just like asleep, then some other woman is doing the exact same, acting the same way. So I don't know if it's just like this same demon just keeps switching bodies, just playing musical lunatics.
By the way, he did say in the rest of the sermon that he doesn't believe that it's like everybody who is in these institutions are somehow demonically possessed. He recognizes there are instances where there's just mental illness or there's an effect from a drug. So he recognizes not all of these people can be said to be demonically possessed, although he does appear to believe that some of them were.
Or else, if it's just all these people have the same drug, they all took the same drug or they have the same problem or something. But I'm telling you, they would just go until they wore themselves out and then they would just pass out. Like, I'm not going to lie, a small percentage of it was funny and entertaining, like this much. Okay, but that's because we're talking about this for like 10 minutes right now. Okay, go there for 24 hours. And first of all, most of it's not funny at all. And after 24 hours, none of this is funny. Okay, after 24 hours.
I can see that. Yeah.
Worst part, the vast majority of it was horrible. This is the worst part was that when I tried to get some sleep at night, which was a fool's errand. I think I might have slept for 15 minutes because I dozed off one time and it was for sure less than 20 minutes. So it was sometime, I slept for some amount between 1 and 20 minutes. I don't know what the length was. The whole night. So I'm just super tired and I'm kind of one of those people that needs my sleep. You know what I mean? And so I just have no sleep. I'm just up all night and I'm sitting in a chair and there's a guy sitting 4 feet from me and I couldn't move because all the chairs are occupied. So it's like, that's my chair.
So like you don't have your own room where you would sleep at night? You have to sit in a chair? That's weird.
And this guy, I kid you not, the entire night, all night long, is just cackling in my ear and just saying just insane things, perverted things, blasphemous things. Just imagine you're just listening to Charles Manson all night. Just if you want to know what this is like, go in a room, turn all the lights on, and put on headphones of Charles Manson interviews and just turn them up and just lay there and just do that.
Well, you know, I don't know if you've ever listened to a Charles Manson interview, but they are pretty wild. So I get the point that he's making here.
For a while, and I'm just listening, just I mean, I'm just spending the night with Legion, talking to me all night, just saying. And look, my friend, I'm sorry, it's torture. It is torture to have an insane person talking in your ear all night. You're trying to sleep, you're exhausted, and you just have a literal crazy person talking in your ear the whole night.
That sounds like Chinese torture, where they put, one drop of water on your forehead and it drips down and then another drop and continue to do that for hours. That's what that sounds like to me.
I want people to understand the kind of crap that I'm going through right now. Because it's so easy for all the little whiners and all the little snivellers and all the little babies and all the fake behavior and pick apart. I just don't think that Pastor Anderson's handling this the right way. This is the kind of crap that I'm dealing with. And leading up to this, the cops were at my house every day, virtually for 2 weeks. Sometimes they would come 2 times a day, 3 times a day. And by the way, when the police came and picked me up, they're apologizing.
Why? What led to this? Is it the situation with his children coming out in multiple videos talking about how horrible the physical abuse was? I suspect that's what it is.
They're like, we're so sorry. We know what's going on. They all know. We know the entire precinct on a first name basis at this point, right? And they're just like, we're so sorry. We have to respond. Like, we know it's stupid. And even when they drop me off at the nut house, they're telling the staff, look, we've been to this guy's house every day for weeks. His wife is doing great. His kids are doing great. This is malicious. But it doesn't matter. They just check me in anyway. See the doctor in 12 hours. And then the doctor at 11 p.m. says, oh, well, yeah, clearly you're not crazy. And clearly this is a malicious thing. And she said, let me just call a few people, verify your story. She checks the story. Yep, your story checks out. You're being discharged at 11 p.m. Of course, did I get discharged at 11? No, I got to stay all night with Legion, all night with Charles Manson. And then I got to get out the next day around noon.
Well, I mean, that's sad to hear. Now, I'm not in any way saying that I don't believe what his children are saying, and I'm not even saying that the guy who committed him didn't have justifiable reason for it. I don't know what the situation is surrounding that because we haven't found out yet. So whatever the reason is, I'm not weighing in on that. Maybe it was legit, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just them harassing him. Maybe it's something else. But that's sad to hear that he went through that. Whether he deserves it or not, whether he belongs there or not, different question. I'm just touching on the question of, can I sympathize with the guy for having been in that situation? Yeah. It sounds like it was a horrible time. Again, not weighing in on the question of whether or not he belongs there, but sounds like it was terrible. Absolutely horrible. So I bet he also saw some really disturbing things there. I've heard of exorcists speak about how they've gone through psych wards and have encountered some people who it wasn't an issue of a mental disability that they were wrestling with, but it was clear that it was demonic in nature. And so it's a wild place to be. So sad to hear that. But I'm sure we'll find out more information about that situation soon. All right, I have one more thing I wanted to run by you. One more thing. Briefly shifting gears one last time. I want to show you a video that I just came across where the person says, prepare your hearts to worship, and then they also put in scare quotes, venerate, Tiny Mary. Wait till the end for the full effect of the hyperdulia, they say. So in other words, the person who's posting this is likely Protestant, and they're criticizing this veneration of the Virgin Mary. And I want to show this video to you and ask the question, is this veneration or is this idolatry? And regardless of what which one of your answers that you would offer in the comment section, be sure to put it there. Regardless of what the answer is, tell me what your position for it is. And then I'm briefly going to talk about what some of the difficulties involved here are in identifying whether or not this is actual Marian worship. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me make sure that you can hear the audio. It's only about a minute long, so it's pretty short. Let's watch it together. So here you can see her holding a small image of the Virgin Mary. All right, now this lady seems to be bringing in a procession, a crown for the Virgin Mary. Now they're placing the crown on her head. Then they're placing a rosary in front of her. There's some deal with rose petals here. I don't know what's going on there. A bunch of little kids dressed as angels, which is not a biblically accurate description of angels, to say the least. Now they're walking the image of the Virgin Mary through the aisle in procession. Okay. All right. So then the question is, okay, is that idolatry? So some people are going to say, well, if there's an image there, it's already idolatry. But of course, you have to keep in mind that an image alone is not automatically idolatry, because you find in the Old Testament, God, right after prohibiting the worship of idols, commands the Israelites to create an image, actually two images of angels, and place them in the Holy of Holies. So you have two large statues of angels placed in the most sacred place in the tabernacle and later on temple, right after the prohibition against idols. So that clearly tells you, okay, this is not a prohibition against images per se, it's a prohibition against worshiping the images. So you can't just say, well, hey, it's an image of the Virgin Mary, that's idolatry. Well, no, you got to go deeper than that. Well, some might say, well, it looks to me like they're venerating her. They're somehow venerating this image. But then, of course, the common response often is made, well, you might have a picture of your mother who passed away and you might kiss that image. That doesn't mean that you're somehow worshiping it. You're rather venerating the memory of your mother who has passed away. So there's now a distinction between worship of an image versus veneration of an image. So then you have to ask the question, okay, well, what's taking place here? Is it worship or veneration? And I think the difficulty involved is any particular gesture that you point to, I can show you biblical examples of where that gesture is found in scripture and is not considered to be a form of worship. So if you say, well, somebody bowed to this image, okay, I can show you instances where people bow to something and it's not considered worship. Even more difficult, you have instances of the prophet Elisha actually allowing a person to bow to the image of a pagan idol, oddly enough. But you get the point. There are other instances where, for instance, Abraham bows to people that clearly is not worship. So bowing in and of itself doesn't mean worship. So bowing to an image doesn't necessarily mean worship according to the biblical paradigm. So what would make this worship as opposed to veneration? I think when you really look through all of the options, there's no particular physical gesture aside from perhaps offering sacrifice. It seems like if you have an offering of sacrifice to something other than God, that is idolatry. Now, obviously, that's not taking place here. So, barring that physical gesture of offering sacrifice, it would appear that idolatry would be something that is in the intention of the heart. So if people intend to venerate the Virgin Mary, or rather to worship the Virgin Mary, that would be idolatry. But rather, if the intention is to merely venerate and not worship, that would not constitute idolatry according to the biblical paradigm. Now, hey, if I'm wrong about that, I want to hear from you. Show me why I'm wrong. Give me a biblical argument, though, for why I'm wrong based on what I just said. By the way, thank you so much for that super chat. DJ Bowman says, remember, we don't worship Mary. We worship statues of Mary. Laugh out loud. Just kidding. That's funny. I appreciate the joke. Uh, Matthew says, Michael, laugh out loud, not a biblically accurate depiction of angels. Michael has no chill. Well, I'm just saying, like, where did this depiction of angels come from, right? Where does that come from? Because that's just clearly not what angels look like in Ezekiel 1, for instance. And so where does that come from? I don't know. Still trying to figure that one out. All right, so Josh V says we don't know the person's heart. That's true. That's true. And so that's one of the difficulties in attributing idolatry to the people in that video. That's one of the difficulties is it does appear that the question of idolatry from a biblical paradigm boils down to one of intention. Short of offering sacrifice, it boils down to one of intention. And none of us can read the hearts or intentions of the people who are there. So I can't assert that any of them were guilty of idolatry. Might you criticize it on other grounds? Maybe, but I don't know about on the grounds of idolatry. But hey, if I'm wrong, I'd love to hear from y'all. Love to see why you think that that is worship and not, as they put in scare quotes, veneration. In fact, I'll share my screen just so you can see who said that. It was the same group that posted that Stephen Anderson stuff, Protestia. I guess that's a Protestant website, because it seems like they're taking a very critical position of Catholicism here. So they say, prepare your hearts for worship, and they put it in funny font there. Venerate Tiny Mary. Wait to the end for the full effect of the hyperdulia, they say. Now, hyperdulia is not worship, of course, so they're probably speaking sarcastically here. Hyperdulia would be not worship. It's not in the category of latria. It's still in the category of veneration. But hyperdulia is something that is assigned to the Virgin Mary in Catholicism because she is the one who gave birth to the second person of the Trinity in the Incarnation. And so there's a unique place for her in Christianity. And for that reason, she's not given just veneration. She's given an extreme form, if you will, or not extreme, but the most veneration that can be given is given to her because of her role in the Incarnation. Anyways, I want to hear from y'all, so make sure to put your comments there in the comment section. I'd love to get your feedback. Of course, hit that like button and the subscribe button too. I would really, really appreciate it. For those of y'all just now tuning in, if you enjoy the content here on this channel, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, because I look at the statistics and I still see a lot of people watching the channel who have not hit the subscribe button. And I think what happens is people watch this show, they enjoy it, but most people don't think twice about hitting the sub button. That's why I'm asking you, hey, take a moment out to go ahead, hit that subscribe button, show me support for what I've been doing. Y'all know I work really hard. I put in a lot of time into these shows. I do at least one show a day. So a lot is involved, and then there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So if you want to support the channel, what I'm doing, especially financially, do consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron member at patreon.com/reason and theology. And you'll also get access to plenty of extra exclusive patron only content. So please do consider supporting the channel. All right. See y'all tomorrow for another one. God bless.